What is up, YouTube? My name is Sam Aldrich, aka Sam the Cameraman, and if you guys are new to the channel, each and every week we're bringing new tutorials for DaVinci Resolve, the Fusion page, color grading, you name it, we're doing it. We'll be dropping some new travel style videos. We're gonna do some truck camping, some fishing. So make sure you guys subscribe, smash the like button on these videos. Don't want you to miss out on anything, so hit that bell notification as well. But today is gonna be a fun one, guys. We're going over the top 5, or my top 5, I should say, things you should know if you're just starting out in DaVinci Resolve 17. These are the things that I wish I would have known when I first started using DaVinci Resolve. I know that I came from like Premiere Pro, and I know a lot of you guys are coming from Premiere Pro or Final Cut, and a lot of things are the same. However, some things are different, and this is just gonna speed that process up. And if you're completely new to editing, this is going to take you from not knowing anything to being able to put out your very first project edited in DaVinci Resolve. So let's not waste any more time, and let's just get right into it. All right, guys, so now we're about to open up DaVinci Resolve. So if you haven't downloaded it, go down to the link in the description. I have it linked, the free version, to you guys right there, so you can just click on that, download it, and then just open it up. When you open up DaVinci Resolve, sometimes it takes a minute, I ain't gonna lie to you, but once it's loading, you're gonna see this DaVinci Resolve. I have Studio, like I said, but the free version will work for everything we are going to do today. So once that loads, it's gonna pop up. Might just take a minute here. All right, once it's loaded up, you're gonna see this project menu open up. Now, I have a ton of different projects and a ton of different stuff up in here. However, you'll just see the untitled project, like right here. And what you wanna do is you can either click on that or you can start a new folder. We will go and just click on the untitled project. And the first thing that is going to open up is you're going to be on the cut page. And we're not going to really go over the cut page today. I don't honestly use it all that much. It's really just meant for sifting through a ton of footage really fast. I have a different way that I'm going to show you how to do that I prefer to do it, and I think it's a little bit more effective. However, you can use this. We're just not going to go over it today. The first tab on the bottom here, these are going to be all your different pages within DaVinci Resolve. We're going to go over each and every one and kind of give a brief explanation on what they are. However, we will really dive into certain ones today. So on this very first one, this is going to be called your media pool. This is where you can input footage, you can create new folders, and just kind of get organized. Now, I always start here. Organization is key when you are working on really big projects, especially if you have multiple people working on these projects. Organization is like by far one of the most important things. So first and foremost, always be organized. Create bins, create whatever it is that you want to do. So to create a bin, you can either hit Control \, that'll create a bin, and we'll call this one footage. And you can right click and create a new bin as well, and we'll call this music. You can label these as well. If you right click on them, you can give them a color tag. We'll give this one in, oh, come on now. We'll give it an orange, and then we'll give this one a color tag, a cyan. Boom. Just like that, we have now organized bins. And you can create bins within your bins as well. So up here, we have all of our hard drives on our computer. And the nice thing about this, you can access your drives without having to come down here and go into your files. You can just come right here, click. We're going to go to 2022 video. We're going to go to personal videos, YouTube videos, tutorial for beginners. And this is all of our footage we're going to use today. So I'm going to open up my footage folder, and I am going to just highlight all of these clips and drag them right down. It's going to ask if you want to change project frame rate. Don't change. And we're going to go to music, and we're going to just drag it down and do the same thing. And just like our folders, we can organize this by color as well. So highlight them all, right click. We're going to go to clip color and orange. Music, right click, clip color, teal. So the next thing we can do is, depending on what you're going to have your frame rate on your timeline, and we'll get into that, you can change the frame rate of your videos. If you want slow motion, you can change all of that. So if we go right click it and we go to clip attributes, I filmed this in 23.976. So it's going to reflect that right here, that these clips are in 23.976. Now, if I would have done these in slow motion, it would say 60 frames per second, and we would just click this drop down and come down to 23.976 and push OK. And that would already be, that would convert it to slow motion right then and there. If you're going to do slow motion, this is the most ideal way to convert your footage properly to slow motion. So just make sure you're doing it that way. When you go from like 60 frames or 120 frames per second, if that's what you shot in, convert it to 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second, whatever you're going to edit in, convert it that way versus just like slowing it down in your clip. This is the best way to do it. All right. So once we have our footage imported, and once we have our music imported and anything else that you're going to import into your videos, we are going to go to the edit page, and that is right down here. So you just click it, and now this is our edit page right here. All right, there's a whole lot of things to go over, but there are a few things that you need to do before you even start dropping in footage into your timeline. First, you want to come up to your file up here. Let's go down to project settings. So there's a whole bunch of stuff here, and we're only going to go over a couple things that I think you really need to know while you are working in DaVinci Resolve, especially for the first time. Like, there's certain things in here that you'll want to like probably dive into more as you get more experienced. But first off is your timeline resolution. So in order to get smooth playback on some footage and some PCs or Macs, whatever you're working on, you might want to work in a 1280 by 720 timeline to start, or project setting to start, and then go back to export to 4K right here. I tend to keep mine at 1920 by 1080 all the time. And then right before I go export, I come back in here and I turn it to 4K, and then you just hit save, and then you can export in 4K. That is just a little hack to get smoother playback. So we'll drop this down to 1920 by 1080, and we'll just save it. But that is how you change your project resolution. If we wanted to create a new timeline, we could just drag this clip into our timeline and we would be good to go. However, that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to delete that, and we're going to delete this, and we're going to say delete. What we want to do is either you can hit Control N, or you can right click, hit timeline, create new timeline. Now we're going to name this working timeline. Again, organization is key, and you'll see why labeling your timelines in a minute is very, very important. So if you want to use your project settings, you can leave this checked, or you just uncheck it, and you can come to format, and you can also change your timeline settings right here. I just leave it at 1920 by 1080. You can change all of this, but we won't get into any of this today. Just kind of leave it as is, and just hit create. And now you have a timeline here, and you can take your footage and you can dump it into your foot here. However, I'm going to show you guys something really cool. We're going to turn off our media pool, turn off our effects. If you come right here, this is another thing that, all right, so I know I said we're going to go over 5 things that every beginner should know going into DaVinci Resolve. However, we're probably going to cover quite a bit more than that. So if I hit anything that you guys want to spend more time on, just make sure you let me know in the comments, and we will spend a whole bunch more time on whatever it is that you guys want to learn. So just let me know in the comments and we'll cover it more in depth. So if you click this button right here, this is going to give our timeline viewing options. If you select the one on the left, that's going to say stacked timelines. And you're going to say, oh, it doesn't really say that our timelines are stacked. Then you want to come all the way over here to the right, and you hit this little plus button. And now we have double timelines. So, and this is where being organized comes into play, because you can open up your media pool. Now we can go Control N, and we're going to go final timeline. We're just use our project settings, create, and I'm going to close that out from up there, and we're going to bring it on down here. So now what we can do is highlight all of our footage and drag it in to our working timeline. We'll turn off our media pool, and we will, all right, we're going to highlight all of this, and we're going to go unlink clips and then delete the audio beds because we don't need the raw audio bed. All right, so if you had a ton of footage to go through, this is where I was saying that it would be the most effective way to do it. This is my favorite way to do it. You can just start sifting through and finding the spots that you want, and you can cut. If you hit C on your keyboard, you can make a cut point, and then you can come over here and you can make another cut point. If you hit V, it goes back to your pointer. Select the clip that you don't want anymore, delete it, select this one, and we can now go on to the next. So, okay, and now we can just do that to this next clip as well. So hit C, we're going to cut here, we're just going to scroll through, cut there, hit V, delete that, and we'll come back here. Same thing with this next clip and same thing with this next clip. We'll just find our little spots that we want to keep, and we'll just kind of cut them up. All right, and just like that, we have now sorted through our clips. And the nice thing about having these stacked timelines is you can just drag and drop. You can just drag all your clips in and drop them in and start working on them as needed. And if we had our media pool open, we could bring in our music and we could cut to our music on here. Now, if you want to get rid of this timeline, you don't want them to be stacked anymore, you can close out the working timeline and you just hit this little box with an X, and here we go. Now we're back to one timeline. So stacking your timelines is a super efficient way to work through a ton of footage and pick those points that are like the moments you want to show in your video. And then, like I said, once you get everything done and you lay it out in your final timeline, you can close it all out and you just go to town doing your thing in your final timeline. So we got our footage here with our music. I'm going to trim this thing up. All right. And now, I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but you kind of find the little cut points. We'll just do a little cut point here. Boom. And boom. All right. Good enough. Another thing that you should know moving into this is just get in the habit of constantly saving your projects. So if you hit Control or Command S, right now it's going to ask me to save this. We're going to just name this beginner. All right, now if I hit Control S, it's just going to constantly be saving. Very quick, not messing with your workflow at all. Now that we've got our footage and our music in our timeline, we've cut to the music, we can go over some of these basic tabs up here and over here in the inspector. So media pool, that's just our media that we have in, that we've imported. So you can control that by like getting rid of it and putting it forward. And these are some effects right here. Now there's a ton of different effects in DaVinci Resolve. There's video transitions. I'll just give you an example of one really quick. So let's do the barn doors. We'll just put that in there. And if you just play that back, we'll just mute this track because we don't need to hear it. So, I mean, just a very simple transition there, but they have all kinds of them in here. You can go through and scroll. These are some that I've purchased, but there's just, bouncing ball, drop warp. I mean, they've really gone all out and done some really cool ones. So make sure you guys check out these different video transitions. I will say if you select your transition and if your inspector isn't open, click on it right here. You can do a lot of different critiques, or you can adjust these in a lot of different ways. So if we do a radial wipe, let's see what this looks like. So you can just select a whole bunch of different ways of this one transition. And you can control the aspect ratio, the rotation, your border, color. There's a whole mess of stuff on each one of these transitions that you can adjust, and we can get more into that in another tutorial. I just want to give you a basic rundown on how these transitions work and how to adjust certain parameters. So if we delete that, since we're already in the inspector, we'll go over all the different tools in here. So the main thing that you're going to want to know how to do is keyframe. So if you come over here and we want to do a subtle zoom in, you hit your keyframe, this little diamond right here, we'll scrub forward and we're just going to zoom in. Now if we play that back, it just pushes in subtly. So a quick way to adjust these keyframes, let's say we wanted that last keyframe to be at the end of the clip instead of it to stop right here, because it just kind of stops suddenly. So we just hit this little diamond at the bottom right of your clip, and you can just select that keyframe and slide it all the way over. And just like that, you got a nice subtle zoom in. And you can do the same thing with your position, your anchor point, your rotation. All of that is super adjustable. Same with cropping. These just, I mean, it's simple as crop left, crop right, top, bottom, pretty standard. I don't really mess with dynamic zoom too much. In composite, this is like if you wanted to overlay something on your screen, or if you wanted to overlay something on here. I'll give you an example. Is if we wanted to, if you just scroll through them, you can see all the different composite modes. Kind of cool ways to combine different clips, you know, get creative, do some fun stuff. I know that like if you have a logo that has like a black background that you want to get rid of, you can just hit screen. Screen removes everything that's dark in your image and just leaves the light parts. So that's a quick way to remove really dark backgrounds. But we want to go back to normal. Let's put that back. So that is composite in a nutshell. Speed change. This is a new addition and I freaking love it. So you can speed your clip up and you can slow it way down. And obviously this was shot in 24 frames per second. So when you slow it down, it starts getting really choppy and doesn't look good. So we will just reset it, but you can also speed it up a ton and makes it look kind of cool. And you can also reverse it, which is kind of neat. Really easy, just by a click of a button. Reset it. Or if you want to freeze frame, let's say we want this frame to be, let's go over here. Freeze it right on here, right? And you just hit freeze frame. And now we're locked in on that frame. It doesn't do anything. It just is a frozen frame. So it's speed change really quick. And another really cool thing that I think you should know is stabilization. Stabilization can save you so much on a project if you're a little bit shaky. And this might be a perfect example. So we can try perspective. It's going to analyze. See how that just smoothed that out? I mean, if we just turn it off, pretty shaky. Turn it on. It does crop in a little bit, so be aware of that. And always watch the corners of your videos, because if there's any weird warping effect, you don't want to use it. One huge turnoff to a lot of clients is when they can tell you've used some kind of stabilizer in post and it starts warping the image. We don't want to do that. All right, if you go down here to similarity, we'll try that one. I would say on all of your footage, just make sure you experiment with each one of these stabilization methods if you're going to go that route, because sometimes similarity works better than perspective and vice versa. So just play with it. I mean, that looks pretty good to me. I probably would go with similarity, or you can go into translation. So let's try that one. I mean, they all work pretty well on this clip, but I mean, just make sure that you experiment, because some work better than others, and you can kind of control the parameters of how smooth and how strong how smooth it is, or how strong the effect actually is. Play with these a little bit if you're starting to get a lot of warping. Sometimes if you bring the strength down and the smoothness up, it kind of fixes itself, but some clips just aren't salvageable. All right, so those are the basic things that I think you should know within this inspector tab. You can turn it off, turn it on right there. Another really good thing to know is you can have a split screen here. So this would be like your footage in your timeline. And if we opened up our media pool, went to our footage, we could double click this and it's going to pop it up in here. So you can like scrub through your footage. Like if you hit in, which would be your I on your keyboard, and then O would be out, you can just drag in your video clip, or you can just click the whole screen It's going to bring in your audio bed, and it's going to bring in your video clip. I tend to always only really need my video, but if you ever need both, you can do one or the other just by clicking the waveform or the film strip. All right, we'll save it so we don't lose our project. All right, so that's the basic things that I use in my edit page. If there's anything else that y'all want to go through, like I said, make sure you let me know in the comments below, and we will cover anything you want to see. All right, the next tab is Fusion. We'll open it up. We aren't going to go through this today. There's a lot of things that you can do in this. The Fusion tab is usually meant for like motion graphics, any kind of animation, 3D compositing, masking out, rotoscoping, tracking stuff. There's so much you can do in Fusion that if you do want to experiment in the Fusion tab, I have some tutorials walking through some pretty neat effects in here that can really like amplify your videos, but we won't go in depth on this today. All right, the next page is the color tab. So a few things we'll go over in here there is a ton, but we're just going to go over some basic stuff today. So these are if you come down here, your color wheels, these are your primary wheels. This is what you're going to predominantly use as a beginner in the color tab. Let's go over. This is your gallery. If you right click, you can go grab still, and you can have a still image up there that you can export as a PNG, by the way. If you just come over, right click, export, it'll pop up. You just come down here, PNG file, but we're not going to do that. But it's kind of a cool way to get screen grabs if you're trying to show clients like a color grade, or if you're trying to show clients like, hey, this is like what it's going to look like. But we don't need the gallery. These are your LUTs. Here is a LUT pack I'm working on. You know what? I'll show you guys one of these LUTs. I'm really excited about these. I have a whole bunch more I'm coming out with, but I will be releasing these very soon. All right. So, but either way, here's your LUTs. A ton of them up here. A ton of them come stock in DaVinci already. And one that I use a lot that come with DaVinci are these film looks. And if you want to see an in-depth tutorial on how to properly use these LUTs, there's a certain way to use them. And if you want to see that, let me know in the comments below. But it's enough about LUTs. And then your media pool. Like you can see your media, of course, like we already went through all of that. And a couple cool stuff in here is you got your clips. You can select each clip. And to get rid of that, you can hit that there. You also have your timeline view. If you want to see like your timeline, you can select your clips that way too. I don't really use this myself all that much. However, it's there. And here's your nodes and effects. We won't really go through effects today, but we're going to go over nodes, and we're going to go over how to copy and paste different clips around. So without using, I won't use a LUT on this one, but we'll use a LUT on the next one. I want to show you how to build out a look really quickly and efficiently as a beginner colorist or someone who's just starting in DaVinci. So these are called nodes. And if you think about nodes as layers, kind of like if you've used Premiere Pro or Final Cut, they're a layer-based editor, and DaVinci is layer-based in the edit page, and then Fusion and then coloring, they're node-based, which is sometimes confusing and intimidating, but I'm going to show you a really quick way to do this. So if you think about coloring, you want to think about building upon each node, and the more organized with this, the better. All right, so we're going to right click and we're going to go node label, and this one's going to be, we'll just type in EXP for exposure. And if you hit Alt or Option and then hit S, it's going to add in another serial node. And we'll get into what's going to come next. But if we want to control our exposure, we want to right click on this little gray area, and actually let's go show scopes. And this is going to bring up your scopes just like so. So we can see that we're not completely clipped in the blacks or the highlights. So if you don't know how to read these scopes, there are plenty of videos out on YouTube on how to properly read scopes. We're not going to go into that today. As a beginner, I think all you need to know is you don't want it way up here, and you don't want your colors to be way down here in the black. And if that's something you really want me to dive into, like I said, let me know in the comments, and we'll go over how to properly read each one of these scopes. All right, the first thing we want to do here is we're going to play with our contrast. We're going to add a little bit of contrast to it, just like that. And we're looking at this right here. We don't want it to get onto the 0 unless it's a stylistic choice. Right now it's not. And your lift, you're going to think about your lift controlling the dark ends of your footage. If you notice, it only really affects the dark ends. And your gamma is kind of like your midtones, adjusting the middle end of your spectrum of the footage there. So we're going to open that up just a little bit, bring down the lift just a little bit more. And then your gain is like your highlights. So if you crank that, obviously it's going to blow out your highlights, or your bright ends of the bright end of the spectrum. We're going to we're actually going to keep that kind of low, kind of go for that like cinematic look. And your offset right here, this is kind of like your global adjustment. This is kind of like if you wanted to control the whole entire image. Like if you just crank that up, it's going to make it all brighter. Crank it down, it's going to make it all darker. Same with the color wheel. If you push it to the orange and red, it's going to make the whole thing that way. Whereas like gain is going to be just your highlights, lift, just your shadows, gamma, the middle part. So okay. So that's like our exposure. I'm happy with where we've exposed it. Our next node, like I said, Alt S brings another node in. We're going to label it. This is going to be your color / balance. So we're going to balance our image in a real quick way. I don't really do this a whole lot, but for someone who's beginning or someone just getting started with the color tab, instead of trying to go through and adjust your temp and your tint, trying to get your white balance set perfectly, or using your gamma sliders to get that set perfectly, a really quick way to adjust your white balance is if you have something white in your image. So if we scroll in, I know for a fact that this right here is supposed to be white. You just hit this little eyedropper and select that. And now we're perfectly white balanced out. I know that when we were in this facility that everything was not perfectly white balanced. It was a very warm toned area. So I'm going to actually hit Control Z. Control Z or Command Z, probably should have went over this right away, is how you undo stuff. So bringing it back here, we're going to close this out. And we're going to go to our edit page. Like, let's say we added a cut on one of our clips here. And we're like, oh, shoot, I want to redo it or undo it. Hit Command or Control Z. And that will go back one previous thing that you've done. So kind of like is like an undo button. All right. Now that we've covered that, let's go back to our color page. Okay. So in order to see what we're dealing with as far as colors, we're going to crank the saturation. So with this, honestly, we can probably crank it to 100. There's going to be some clips you do where 100 just looks gross. And that's not the case here. But yeah, so honestly, right here, I'm happy with this. Like, I like what this looks like. If we go Control D, we can deselect the color and balance and see what the difference is. Or if you come up here to this little rainbow circle, that's going to take everything off the clip. Now, if we really wanted to balance it out, I can tell that it's warm. Like I said, we could select the eyedropper, select that, and that's technically balanced out, but it kind of makes his skin tones look, ish. We could bring it in and warm it up, but instead of doing that, let's just double click here, 0, double click here, 0, and we're going to just maybe cool it down just a little bit. And I'm going to add just a little bit of green in the tint. And right there, I'm really happy with how that looks. Now, if we go Alt S, we could add a little bit of sharpening because this is shot in log. I know that it's a little softer than it should be. So you come down here where this little pyramid and the raindrop is, and you're going to go into your radius and just scroll it down 1. I never really go beyond 47. Sometimes this is too powerful for this image. I'm pretty happy with it. And that's kind of a basic way to get a color grade within DaVinci Resolve here. Like I said, you want to think about these nodes by building upon each one of them. We're going to go exposure. Always start with your exposure and then go to your color and balance. And then sharpening would be somewhere down the line. As you get more experience, you can do more nodes, create different looks. really fun stuff. Okay, I'm going to show you one of my LUTs here because I'm just excited about it. And I think that y'all will like it. So if you come here, we're going to go Alt-S. One thing with LUTs is you never want them to be your very first node. If anything, you want it to be about 4 to 5 nodes down the line. We're going to put it on node 4, node label, and we'll call this one LUT. And we're going to go to, I think it was warm and cozy 1. Let's see which one. Let's see how this is. This will actually be a perfect example. We're going to put it here. And if this was our very first node and we're trying to save the dark part of this image, if we look down here, it's crushed. Look what happens. It doesn't have, like, it can't save it. So we're going to, if you want to reset a node, right click, reset node grade. If we come to our first one where we should be doing our exposure, EXP, and this is why being organized is crucial. You can lift this up and look at the retention we're getting. We're getting all of that detail back. I mean, absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible there. And this is more of a filmic look, so we can add some saturation. And then here we're going to go to node label, color / balance. And we could bring the temp down. And just like that, we have us a graded image. And that is how to properly use a LUT. Let's reset this node grade. Let's reset this one. And let's reset that one. And let's try warm and cozy 1. This one is one where you could probably make adjustments after, but we're going to just add a little more contrast. This is more of kind of like a Joker look, I would say. And then we're going to pump the saturation just a little bit, bring that temp it down just a little. And just like that, we got another really cool look. So if you wanted to reset everything, like you are like, I'm completely just not happy with the look, I want to get rid of all of these nodes, instead of deleting them and renaming them all that, you can just right click in the open space and go reset all grades and nodes. And it's going to start over from scratch. Now let's say we really like this look right here and we want to bring that all to these clips here. So if I select this clip, if you're using a 3-button mouse and you have a middle scroller wheel that can be pushed in, just push it in on that and you just adapt that look to this one as well. And you could do the same here. Now, if you're working on a laptop or you're working with a mouse that can't do that, so we will reset. What you can do is with this selected, right click on here and you go apply grade. And just like that, your grade's applied. So that's a quick way to transfer a look or a quick color grade over from each and every one of your clips. All right, so the next tab is going to be the Fairlight tab. And today we're not going to really cover anything in here. Just know that this thing is insanely powerful. And you can really do a lot to your audio right here. And you can actually record audio using this up here directly in here if you're doing like a voiceover or something. However, I do use some plugins that really help using artificial intelligence, AI, to tweak your audio. And if that's something y'all want to know or have more of a tutorial on, hit me in the comments. And again, we'll just create some videos based on things you want to know from this video. And but yeah, we're not going to really go over anything in here today. And the final page is the delivery page. And there is so much you can do in here. So we got presets you can make, you know, there's the YouTube, Vimeo, Twitter. I mean, you name it, you can do it. And like I said, normally I edit in a 720 or 1080p timeline to save on my system. You can go up here to your file, project settings. And this is where I was talking about making it 4K. And now everything's 4K. Everything on your timeline would be 4K as well. If you have any certain like Fusion titles or anything like that, you may want to go back and double check them to make sure they sized up with it. Sometimes I've noticed they haven't. Sometimes they do. I'm not really sure what's going on with all of that. I would just double check, and if you need to bump up the scale on them, you can do so as needed. So basically what you want to do is under your custom, let's just name it beginner, and pick your location. We're going to put this on my desktop. And I really don't mess with a whole lot of stuff. I always export in H.264, MP4. Make sure your frame rate matches the frame rate of your timeline. Same here. I want to go 4K. And I don't really mess with any of this stuff. I might bump this way up once in a while if I'm working on a really big project that has a lot of data in it. But for now, like, that's good enough. And I don't really go into the advanced settings or subtitle settings really at all. I just kind of keep it simple, especially when it comes to YouTube videos. And I mean, if you have any specific audio specifications from like a client, you can go in here, change your bit depth and all of this stuff out here. But usually you can change your codec as well. Actually, no, you can't. You can tell how much I really use this. But yeah, that's kind of how I set my settings up. And then I just go add to render queue, and then you would just hit render. You would render out your video. So we'll do that. Then that'll be right here. Bring it up onto this, and we can watch the final product. I muted the audio track. So the audio track was muted in the export. So if you mute your audio track in, if you notice right here, and I can't unmute it on the delivery page. So just make sure if you mute anything and you need it, make sure that's unmuted for the final product. But all right, guys, so that is my top 5 things that I think you should know if you're just starting out in DaVinci Resolve 17. If there's anything that we went over that you would like to know more about or would like more of an in-depth tutorial on, make sure you guys let me know in the comments below, or anything else that y'all want to see in the future. Let me know in the comments below. I'm going to be putting out new videos every single week. So anything you want to know, I'll make it happen and I will tell you exactly how to do it. So let me know in the comments below. And yeah, just make sure you guys are liking, subscribing so you don't miss out on what's going on. And I just appreciate you guys for showing so much love on the latest videos that we've been putting out. So I thank each and every one of y'all for following along, and I'll just catch you in the next one.